Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I can't spend a huge amount of time on this story, but I damn sure want to do this story. Let me check my sound. Always check your sound. I need to have that as a t-shirt. Always check your sound. By the way, guys, if you like what I'm pulling down, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon or Super Chat. Not to mention all these videos are going to get demonetized. But I definitely want to talk about this. Norway, or the gentleman from, I think it was Norway, or a gentleman from Norway, put up Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. That is utterly absurd. Just because Donald Trump may be stumbling onto the peace process with North Korea doesn't necessarily make how he behaves as an absolute a good thing, especially not within the context of peace. He has goddamn John Bolton in his background with the mustache looking creepy. Peace Prize. Hilariously, no. If you're thinking of Donald Trump getting the Peace Prize, you're not paying attention. Right now, Saudi Arabia, with the United States' help, with Donald Trump's knowledge and approval, is directly providing military aid and assistance to Saudi Arabia as it goes about a siege on a port city named Hudaydah. Hudaydah. I'm pronouncing this poorly. There are hundreds of thousands of people in that port city. It is going to be a bloodbath. It is known that it's going to be a bloodbath. You've had agencies come out and says, oh my God, you are going to murder and kill a lot of people if you engage in this siege. And they are going to engage in that siege anyway, and we're going to assist them when they engage in that siege. Hundreds of thousands of kids are going to be killed in this process in the same way that the Saudis have been murdering kids and babies and weaponizing starvation and weaponizing illness to go about killing and murdering the population. Why are we a part of this? Why are we a part of this? Why are the tax dollars that are being put into the coffers of people? Why on earth are the military and the brave people who are in the military being leveraged to help these bloodthirsty maniacs that's part of this theocratic head-chopping, hand-chopping, crucifying, terrorist-spreading regime? Why? Why are we assisting this? I imagine that in the same way that Donald Trump going through with the peace process in North Korea was wall-to-wall on the media because they care so much about the North Koreans. They care so much about the North Koreans. They're so humanitarian. They're bleeding hearts. Are their bleeding hearts going to go into wall-to-wall coverage on us supporting these bloodthirsty monsters as they go about murdering and killing people in Yemen? Is it? Are we going to see wall-to-wall coverage of the Trump administration not helping the peace process in Saudi Arabia, not invading or intruding in a way that would prevent them from murdering all of these people? Are we going to see this? And if so, if not, why not? Why not? Autocratic regime, check. Theocrats, whether they're not theocrats in North Korea, but in this case, definitely theocrats, definitely dictators, definitely repressive, definitely head choppers, definitely hand choppers, definitely spread terrorism throughout the world. That's a lot of check marks. And in this case, that bloodthirsty, blood-soaked regime is now murdering and killing people and will do so in large amounts in this port city. With our assistance. With our assistance. Is the news, are the bleeding hearts that bleed so heavily for the North Korean people, are those same bleeding hearts going to bleed openly and profoundly and profusely for the people in Yemen? Let's take a look at the story. Deadly siege of Yemeni port of Hudaydah begins with Washington's aid and approval. Forces led by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates launched a long-anticipated siege of Yemen's Red Sea port city, Hudaydah, Wednesday, in what is certain to be the bloodiest battle since the Saudis began bombing the impoverished Arab country on March 2015. The charity group CARE International reported 30 airstrikes in the space of a half an hour on Wednesday morning, while warships off of Yemen's coast conducted a naval bombardment. The military operation being carried out in defiance of warnings from both the United Nations and multiple aid groups that hundreds of thousands of civilians in the crowded city are in danger of losing their lives. They have also warned that the devastation of the Port Hadaya, which receives an estimated 70-80% of Yemeni's imports, including food, fuel, and medicine, threaten millions more with starvation in a country where 22.2 million depend on food aid and at least 8.4 million are already facing famine. Home of the brave. We're leveraging people who got into the military because they wanted to do what's best and they wanted to defend their country. And while I disagree that this is a real sentiment, meaning this is this kind of cultural nonsense that's putting the people ahead to get them to commit atrocities, I grant that their belief in it is real. In some of these cases, we're leveraging. I want to be very clear on this. We're leveraging the bravery of our troops, of our citizens, of our boys and our girls and our kids and our moms and our dads and the people who join the military for all sorts of reasons, but we're leveraging that bravery to commit atrocities at the behest of this theocratic regime that is the antithesis of everything that it is to be an American. It is illegal, and not just illegal, it is grossly and profoundly immoral by human standards. Let's keep going. Carrying far greater weight than these humanitarian warnings, however, was the approval provided by Washington. Over the past week, a report surfaced that the Trump administration had ordered the Pentagon to review plans for a direct U.S. participation in the siege of Hadaya. This was followed by a perfunctory statement last week given anonymously by a spokesperson for the White House Security Council that the United States opposed any military action likely to exacerbate the dire humanitarian situation in Yemen. But we are helping them do this and commit these atrocities. On Monday, however, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo issued a statement described as a blinking yellow light. Proceed with caution. He allowed that he was closely following the situation in Hadaya, but failed to make any appeal to Saudi Arabia or UAE to refrain from attacking the city. Instead, he declared, "I have spoken with the Emirati leaders and have made it clear that our desire to address security concerns while preserving free flow of humanitarian aid while life-saving commercial imports." Because they've so done that so far. They've so done that. They've so been in the bag for this, of doing the right thing about this. And on Wednesday, the Wall Street Journal, citing Pentagon sources, reported that the United States military is helping the Gulf allies develop a list of targets, supposedly with the aim to minimize the number of civilian casualties. Sure they are. Similar claims were made in relation to the United States targeting the city of Mosul, Iraq, and Iraqi Syria, where they reduced to rubble by U.S. buildings and shells, while the number of dead and wounded ran into the tens of thousands. The siege in Hadaya, a port city of 600,000 people, will well eclipse even those U.S. war crimes. A military attacking or siege of Hadaya will impact hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians, the United Nations humanitarian coordinator in the country, Liz Grand, warned in a statement on Friday. In a prolonged worst case, we fear that as many as 250,000 people may lose everything, even their lives. The British government, Theresa May, has also been just as assiduous and right here. The British government of Theresa May, which like the Trump administration and the Obama administration before it, has backed Saudi Arabia and UAE with massive arms sales, was clearly warned in advance by the UAE of the impending siege, passing on an advisory to the British-based aid groups late last week to evacuate the city. Yeah, we're going to keep the arms flowing because that's, profit. But yeah, you probably should get out the city because they're going to murder a lot of people. The Red Cross, CARE, Doctors Without Borders, and other groups have pulled their personnel out of the port city, as has the United Nations. These evacuations, together with the bombing and shelling, have brought the distribution of food of Yemen's starvation to a halt. More than 13,000 Yemens have been killed since Saudi Arabia began its bombing campaign over 3 years ago in a bid to topple the government led by the Houthi rebels and to reinstall the U.S.-backed puppet regime of President Rabo Mansour Hadi. Essentially, the United States is backing them in order to put their guy in. We like to have their dictator, their regime, their person in. We're murdering a lot of people. That's what it boils down to. Why are we supporting this regime that's going to end up murdering a lot of people? I'm asking the question even though I already know the answer to the question, but I'm kind of posing that question because not everybody thinks of it in these terms. We are helping a blood-soaked regime attack another nation that in no way is attacking us, in no way is threatening us. Why on earth are we leveraging our military? Why on earth are we putting tax dollars? Why on earth are we putting our resources into doing such a thing? And beyond that, is it legal to do in the first place? Rand Paul is right on this. Bernie Sanders is right on this. Let's stop supporting this blood-soaked, bloodthirsty, head-chopping, terrorist exporting, hand-chopping, crucifixion regime. I ended at that. I know that's a weird way to end it or to sound it, but I ended it on an odd note. I'm just making this point that we should not be assisting Saudi Arabia in committing atrocities. And I would hope, and I expect to see, media coverage, wall to wall, explaining how the Trump administration is doing things to kill and starve Yemenis because it cares so much and they're such bleeding hearts. I full well expect to see them going after Trump on this wall to wall coverage. I have no expectation of that, by the way. I'm being completely sarcastic. I will end it here. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. Normally guys, I engage with my audience a little bit more, but I have to get through a few of these because I can't do it later today. So I'm doing them now. So all of my apologies for not necessarily going more into detail with the audience. By the way, one thing. Our relationship with Saudi Arabia is based for the most part in oil. They provide oil, we provide protection, and that's been this kind of weird association for us over the past 50, 60, 70 years. This was a pact made by FDR, and it has gone on since. Presidents, Democratic and Republican, have essentially stood by this particular pact. As blood-soaked and as bloodthirsty as they are, we have stood by this pact. Despite Saudis being the ones who were on those airplanes that hit us on 9/11, we've stood by this pact. What I suggest is that we focus more so on this idea of a green energy revolution. We provide the energy ourselves and we cut the cord. We take the penis out of our mouth. We get off our knees from this standpoint and we actually go about dealing with the affairs of state knowing that we have energy security because that energy comes from us. We can supply the energy that we need. We don't necessarily need to have these associations in the Middle East, and we need to stop spending nearly $1 trillion on the military and start investing that stuff in the stuff here. The truth of the matter is the money we spend on the military amounts to a jobs program. The money we dump into military. The catch to this that people sometimes miss is in the same way we spend 4 times as much for healthcare and we don't necessarily get the bang for our buck in healthcare. Why do you believe that spending this much on the military is giving us the exact same bang for our buck? Certainly there's going to be a lot of this stuff that's fluff, and there's going to be a lot of this money that's completely wasted, and there's no way to see a correlation between the amount that you spend versus the amount that you get in comparison to what other nations spend in comparison to what other nations get. I strongly suspect that just like the healthcare thing, where we spend 4 times as much or 2 times as much, but we're like 30th in the world, that military may be something similar. The price tag alone is not necessarily indicative of the military capacity or the output that is taking place. And in a capitalist country, I would wager that a lot of that money is going into people's pockets as opposed to going into things that actually would increase their military effectiveness. I could be wrong, but I make that point just because you could see it with healthcare. Yeah, you can see the same thing with healthcare. So, look, I'm going to leave this here. My main basic point here is we should not be assisting these bloodthirsty regimes. If we are not under threat, and by the way, we're not under threat, then we should not be involved in massacres. And that's literally what's taking place. We are involved with massacres purely due to our relationship with Saudi Arabia. Congress needs to step in. And if the media really cares so much and there's such bleeding hearts about the North Koreans, maybe they can share a little bit of that bleeding hearts for the people who are in South and in Yemen, who are going to be massacred by our hands. I'll leave it at that. Thanks, guys.